My name is Russell Spatz. I'm an alcoholic. So I haven't found necessarily have a drink, nor have I had a drink since January 25th, 1981. I'm in my 45th year of sobriety, and I've been doing these step series for like 35 years or something like that. I'm not even sure when I started, when I was about 7 years. You can't hear it? Can't hear anything? In the back? We'll figure this thing out. We're going to get this train robbed. Don't worry.
Don't start yelling.
Don't start yelling. Okay. So, when I used to do these things, theoretically, if this was a real step meeting, being done by somebody that actually had maybe done the steps, this would be step 4, technically step 4. So I've changed. I'm 76 years old, and I'm doing this for 45 years, and I've changed. I do things differently now. I just sort of explain it to you. I'll try to explain it to you as best I can. I want to be as transparent as possible with you all. When I used to do the steps, and there's nothing wrong with this, and most people do it this way, I would come here and have a book, I'd have this, I'd have things underlined, I'd have all sorts of stuff, and we would do something that focused just on the 4th step, or just on the 3rd step, or just on the whatever, So they say the people that don't get this thing are unable or incapable of living a life which demands rigorous honesty. Now, I'm not saying I'm rigorously honest. As a matter of fact, I'm a screw up, you know what I mean? So if you see anything you like in me, it's probably a mistake. It's an accident. But what happens is, and that's the way I used to do the steps, and which is a good thing. It's a good thing. I follow guys going around just how do you do a 4-step. Well, you can read the book. There's a chart in there. You can read the book. But what happens is when you do the steps, these steps, I don't worship the steps. I used to worship the steps. Worship Bill Wilson. Bill Wilson's not my higher power. God bless him. He's a good guy, I suppose. And nor do I worship AA. It's we have a wonderful fellowship. It's not exactly Well People's Anonymous, and just want to let you know that. But I've changed a lot. I've changed. I'm different. Bill Wilson, in his 21st year, when he hit the skids and he was going under right after the LSD, and he was a wonderful guy. Don't get me wrong. He was screwed up. I was screwed up. So he was an alcoholic just like me. He said, in talking about how old timers were not making it, they were unhappy with their sobriety. He said that there were some people in AA that he ran into that seemed to have, they had been rocketed. They had something different. He called them the benighted ones. If you read the Next Frontier, which I encourage everybody to read along with Dr. Bob and the good old timers. If you read The Next Frontier, he says, perhaps these people, the benighted ones, whoever they are, the ones that not only have long-term sobriety, and back then, long-term sobriety, well, he was long, so he had like 20 years, that was long-term. He says, perhaps these people will be the spearhead of the next major development in Alcoholics Anonymous. That's not me saying that. That's what he said. Maybe there's something beyond AA. Now, I'm my 45th year of sobriety, so there's something beyond AA. I'm just going to now, you don't have to believe me. You can say, well, this guy's full of crap. It's okay. It doesn't matter. I'm just talking about what I found. There's this great line in the book of John where Jesus is talking to Nicodemus, and he says, I'm just telling you what I know and what I've seen. That's all we do here. Every alcoholic in his own language and from his own point of view talks about how he discovered his relationship and how he cultivated his relationship with God. All we do here is talk about our experience. My sponsor used to say, when a man with experience meets a man with money, the man with experience will walk away with the money. The man with the money will walk away with the experience. I mean, you can tell me you don't agree with me, you don't like anything I say, it's all bullshit and everything like that, but you see, this is my experience. So, I know what my experience is. I know what I've seen, and you want to hang around with a lot of guys who have a lot of time, 35, 40, 45 years, 50 years. I know what their experience is. So you could get something out of it or not, and you may understand, you may not. 10 years from now, you may understand, oh, that's what that guy was talking about, So I don't try to dumb it down. You understand what I'm saying? I don't try to say, well, let me talk in such a way so the young lady with 62 days gets it, the man with 3 months gets it, or the guy with 20 years gets it, or, I just talk, I just give my testimony and talk about what my experience is, and you grab out of it whatever you're going to grab out of it. And I can promise you that almost every step in this deal is going to be in what I'm about to talk to you about tonight. And all I'm going to talk to you about is my life. Which I'd like to think is pointed towards a life of rigorous honesty, but I'm just, because here's the deal. When you do the steps over and 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 over, I'm getting it. When you say the straight prayer over and over and over and over, when you sponsor people over and over and over and over and over and over, and you do the 10-step over and over and over and over, and the 8-step and 9-step over and over and over, and the 12-step over and over, when you do that all together, what happens is you lose track. When you first come in, it's all new and different. You say, oh, I think I just did a third step. That was a third step. Oh, you turn to a guy and say, hey, how you doing? Don't drink and go to me. He say, oh, thanks a lot. I appreciate that. I said, man, I think I'm doing 12-step work. That's like a 12. And it is. Here's the deal. And you just act differently. You do things differently, and you compartmentalize. Oh, yeah, I did a 4-step. Oh, you do. Your whole life is about bouncing from step to step. And but I did, I was really worried, but then I turned it over. And now everything's okay. And it's so clear the steps you're doing. But what happens is when you're running the race, the 4-minute mile, and you're doing the deal every single day, and you're going to 3 meetings a day, and you got you're doing the whole bit. What happens, it gets to the point where you can't compartmentalize anything. It becomes your life. It becomes your behavior. It becomes your personality. My sponsor used to say, when I was 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 years, he'd say, why do you do the things or say the things you say? I said, well, that's just my personality. He says, your personality is killing you. I knew the booze was killing me. I didn't know my personality was killing me. But the real problem centers in our mind, not our body. The drink is only a symptom. The real problem is they teach us in the second step is we're crazy. We don't know we're crazy. We're selfish. We're selfish. Self-centered. 100 forms of fear. That has nothing to do with drink. That's the way we are without the booze. We drink the booze because nothing works so well. It's just a few drinks. But we're selfish, self-centered, 100 forms of fear, and delusional. Here's what it means by delusional. We can't separate the true from the false. Our alcoholic life, which means our alcoholic thinking, is comfortable to us, seems normal to us. It seems normal to us to worry all the time. It seems normal to us to be anxious all the time. It seems normal to us to be pissed off, get angry. It seems normal to us to blame other people. We have every bad thing that you could possibly imagine in the world that gets you crazy and bothers you and makes you ill at ease is comfortable to us. And you know who we hang around with? People just like us. We want to hang around with them church people or anything, they're weird. We're the people that say, wow, that's too fucking good to be true. Oh, that's bad. That's got to be freaking true. We are just crazy. But we sort of like ourselves. We're like, we think we're cool. It's just I've never seen the Time magazine that's saying those incredible alcoholics. It's just the world doesn't really understand that. So what happens is I can promise you whatever I'm going to say to you tonight has every step in it because I'm a product of working the steps for 45 years. I'm a product. And I've reaped the benefits from it. And I'm still not altogether well. So I'm not saying I'm well or anything like that. So I'm going to give you a story. In the amount of time I've been in this, I could give you 300 stories. One time I wrote them all down because I had so many, 300 stories, There's probably more than that. But I could give you one story. I think I'll give you one story. We'll see how that works out, time. I'll give you one story. But But I think in every story I have, you can read the steps into every single story. And, in the seventh step, one of the things it says, and it's true, but doesn't say till the seventh step. In the 12 and 12, it says humility. It says humbly, that's the step where they talk about humbly, ask God to remove our shortcomings. It says humility is the basis of every single step. The basis of every step. That's not me, that's what it says in our, quote, conference approved material. There may be some material you might want to get into that's not necessarily approved by the conference, but it says humility is the basis of every step. So if I'm talking about the fourth step, or I'm talking about the third step, or the sixth step, humility is in there somewhere. It's going to be in there somewhere. And so I'm going to talk about some things in my life that sort of I'm not a humble person, you know what I mean? But I'm talking about some things that sort of humble me. That I'm not exactly proud of or happy about, you know what I mean? But it just has to do with my life and the way it is today, and a little bit about my history, and a little story about that. And I'm talking about, I'm going to talk, and how the insanity, because you connect the dots. I mean, what does the fourth step have to do with the third step? What does the third step have to do with the second step? What does the first step have to do with like the sixth step? Is there like a connection between all these things that somehow makes sense in the end where you can forget? What does being insane, naturally insane and delusional, have to do with lying to yourself and being dishonest with other people? There's a connection. If you're insane, what does that have to do with not having any clue as to what the fuck is going on and hurting other people? What does that have to do with hurting other people and being self? Is there a connection? What does the fourth step have to do with helping with the insanity? And if the fourth step has something to do with helping insanity, what does the fifth step have to do with that? And if the fifth and the fourth step has to do with somehow making you uninsane and living a life of rigorous honesty, then what is the third step? What does God have to do with all that stuff? What does the Holy Spirit or God have to do with it? What does the fellowship of the Spirit have to do with the fellowship of the AA? Is it the same thing? The fellowship of AA is all you need is a desire to stop drinking, be batty as a bed bug. The fellowship of the Spirit shows up on the very last page of AA. It says you will find some of us in the fellowship of the Spirit. You trudge the road. What is the fellowship of the Spirit? It's on the same page where they say, well, you might not meet us, but God's going to be in charge of that. And God, your real reliance has to be on God. He will show you how to create the fellowship you crave. What is the fellowship you crave? If you're like me, I was a bartender. I craved the fellowship of alcoholics that drink like I do. I craved that fellowship for years. Then later on, I got tired of that fellowship because I got depressed, I got crazy, and I preferred the fellowship sitting next to my record player, playing the same songs, Alky songs over and over again, like I'm Mr. Blue or Only the Lonely or stuff like that, or Rainy Days and Mondays, any song that could get me into a real mood, and then sort of imagine I was in the bar with all the girls and they were all looking at me and everything. That was the fellowship I craved at the very end. I didn't want to be around 300 people because I felt lonely, but if I was with my imaginary friends and my imaginary girlfriend, that was the fellowship I craved. And now I'm telling you that as alcoholics, if I was talking to like normal people, they'd probably think that was a bit odd. But there may be people that identify with that, that kind of thinking, that kind of life. So I want to tell you, so I'm going to talk about something that happened in my life many years ago when I got married with my first wife. And I'm going to talk to you about what happened with my first wife. I'm talking about my divorce. This is a real thing. This is a real life thing. During the drinking, after the drinking, and how it affects me now. I'm going to talk about a real deal in my life, and I was there when it happened most of the time. And then I'm going to, and maybe you'll see the fourth step in there somewhere. Maybe you'll see. Because we really live, I used to say we live two lives here. Two lives. But it's really a lot more than that. You see, there's a young lady here with 62 days. God bless you. But if I was to say, what's your name again? Hey, if I was to say to Heather, the way you think right now is 62 days, is that different than the way you thought 70 days ago? Have you changed in 70 days the way you say things, see things? Some things. A little bit? A little bit. So if you have 5 years, have you changed in the way you look at things and think about yourself and think the way other people than you were when you had 62 days? So if you have 10 years, how much has your thinking about yourself and other people changed in how you look at things if you have 10 years than when you had 5 years? And if you have 20 years, how much has your thinking about things have changed? So I used to say, well, we got two lives. You got the life of the drinker, the alcoholic, and then we have the life when you're not drinking, but that's not true. We have 1,000 lives. Every day our thinking changes, new epiphanies, new things that open up to us that we never saw before. We have lives that have changed when we weren't even drinking the way we were. Then we have lives that were changed during the drinking the way we were. Then we have lives changed when something happened, we stopped drinking. And then in 5 years and 10 years, it's just an evolving, we just keep on evolving and changing. So the way I am now, whatever story I tell you now, whatever I say out of my mouth now, and I don't need a book to talk about it. I don't need I don't need any of that stuff. It's deep down inside of me. I've been reading it, but I don't need that stuff because it's my experience. I can just be transparent about it, but I think that somewhere within this whole deal that I'm going to share with you is the fourth step. And the different stories we tell ourselves, and the fifth step, and the seventh step, and humility, and all that sort of stuff. So I'm just going to get right into the story. So if you're an alcoholic like me, you tend to notice when you're not happy. You talk to yourself a lot. You talk to yourself a lot because you need somebody intelligent to talk to. So, you talk to yourself, and who's more intelligent about me than me? So, you know what I mean? And you say things like, man, if I only had a girlfriend, I'd be okay. If I only had a husband, I'd be okay. If I only had somebody to love me, I'd be okay. And you say that because, number one, you're brilliant. Nobody knows you more than you. And you absolutely believe that. You believe that the answer to your problem, if you're a woman, is a man. Or if you're a man, the answer to your problem is a woman. Or if you're not having sex, the answer to your problem is sex. Or if you're not, if you don't have money, the answer to your problem is money. And you absolutely believe that. As a matter of fact, it's sort of like alcohol. As soon as you get money, you feel better. You see it work. It's like scotch. And it works quick. You're not feeling good because you're lonely. You get laid. You feel great. You're on top of the world. It works like scotch. The whole world works like that. How can you deny that your whole life and how you are can be changed in a nanosecond, if you could only have the gal, the guy, the car, the job, whatever it is? It's absolutely clear. And nobody, like it says in the Big Book, has made a worse job of living life that way than alcoholics. It doesn't work. Because if it worked, you wouldn't be here. Because if you're an alcoholic like me, maybe you have some sort of weird alcoholism, you've lived your entire life chasing shit like that. And I'll tell you something, now that you're sober, you're still chasing it. You're still doing it. And it's killing you. It's killing you. Every bad thought you have in your mind ever has to do with worrying about the things of this world. Not having, losing, threatened, all that sort of stuff. It's just killing. And you know something? You're scared shitless because you don't, let me tell you, you know what the real problem is? You don't even know how to stop it. You don't even know how to stop it. You've been doing that shit for like 10, 20, 30, all your life. You're 20 years sober, you're still doing it. 25 years sober, you're still doing it. So, so it's not usual for me to wake up every morning and says, if I only had this, I'd be okay. If I only had that, I'd be okay. To base your happiness on the things of this world, instead of saying maybe there's something really screwed up about me, it has something to do with alcoholic insanity. So the truth of the matter is I am blinded to the truth. I am blinded to the truth. That's sort of like what the fourth step is all about, being blind. The first time I see the truth, the first time I ever see the truth as an alcoholic is on December 25th, 1980, 30 days before I stopped drinking. When I had godly sorrow come about me, I was all by myself and I thought my life was over, and I had what's called shame. I wasn't, for the first time in my life, I wasn't feeling sorry for myself because I'm a self-pity-holic. I became ashamed of what I had become. You know? People think that shame is a bad thing. Shame is what saves alcoholics. Self-pity kills them. Shame saves alcoholics. That's why they say the way we get a new perspective is repeated humiliations. Being shamed and the final crushing of our self-sufficiency. What will change you is when you become totally ashamed of yourself. What will kill you is when you feel sorry for yourself. And we are masters of feeling sorry for ourselves. And the reason I know it's true is because I've spoken around. This is my first rodeo, okay? And, you know, you can't have thousands of people come up to you and say, man, you're talking about me, without realizing that I might not be off base here. If I've had a thought, and it's a crazy thought or a bad thought, or whatever thought, chances are you've had it too sometime in your life. Because that's why we get along together. Because not because we're perfect, because we're totally screwed up and we have the same kind of screw ups. You know, the disease sort of plays out the same. We may look different, but we're sort of like on the same deal. So one day I was sitting in class, and I was about to graduate, and or whatever it is, and during my last year of college, and this gal walks in, and she was a knockout. And I'm sitting there, and I'm always on the look. I'm always on the hunt. If you're a guy like me, I'm always hunting. So I'm looking, I'm saying, and immediately, whatever that is in my mind goes off, like an explosion goes off, and it says, man, if you had that gal, you'd be okay. It is absolutely clear. Oh, and by the way, nobody can tell me differently, because if you come up to me and tell me, no, it's not that, it's Christ, or it's Jesus, or you go to church, and so I don't want any party, because you just don't know. You don't know. I know what's going to work for me. You know? Don't talk to me about prayer and church, any of that. I know what works for me. So I said, if I only had that gal, I'd be okay. So I started a campaign to insinuate myself in that gal's life. And believe me, alcoholics can be charming. You know, alcoholics can be nice, and alcoholics can play. And I did whatever I could, and I met her father, who was a doctor, cardiologist. I met a mother who was a lawyer. I met a grandfather who was a lawyer. You know, lived in a nice house on Miami Beach. I met the whole deal, you know. I played the game. And I was on my way. I think I was going to law school or something like, oh, no, I wasn't going to law school at the time. I was going to go for my PhD in algebraic topology in mathematics. So my whole life was about mathematics, and that was going to do. And I met these people. And it was a whole bevy of professional people, doctors and lawyers. And all of a sudden, I woke up one day and it occurred to me, what am I doing being a math teacher, a PhD in math? I mean, I know I love it and everything. I ought to be a lawyer or a doctor. It just sort of came about me. Somebody asked me one day, you know, why did you become a lawyer? And I said, well, because I always liked law. I like Perry Mason. I like that stuff. And let me tell you you want to know what the truth is? The truth is I became a lawyer to get into a gal's pants. Now, that may not sound like a lot of integrity there. You know what I mean? But at least it's the truth. But I didn't know that at the time. My whole life was to become a math guy. I loved math. I loved working in esoteric things and stuff like that. And all of a sudden, I met this girl. I meet her whole family. I wake up one day and I say, I ought to be a lawyer. And I mean, and I believed me. I believed me. That's the problem. Like, you believe it. There's no sponsors. There's no guy there saying, what are you, crazy? You know what I mean? I believe my bullshit. So that's the deal. So, okay. So anyway, so I did my whole deal, and I ended up graduating law school, became a division chief in the state's attorney's office, prosecuting major crimes and all that stuff. And I ended up marrying this gal. You know, the gal who was going to, if I could only have that gal, that car, that job, that I'd be okay. And I got the house on Miami Beach. I got the golf course. I got the deal. I became a lawyer. I married the gal. And I had a son, beautiful son. And man, I'm on my way to stardom. You know what I mean? And, but there was a problem. I had this problem getting home before 2:00 in the morning. You see, because somehow, some way, I mean, listen, I loved her and everything. She was great for, I'd say about 6 months. 6, 7 months. Oh, you're laughing. You don't know what it's like. But let me tell you something. Well, 6 months, 7 months, you know, all my relationship with women, they would last for 3 years to 5 years, but they really started falling apart after 6 or 7 months. But I mean, it was just, then sort of guilt keeps you in and stuff like that. But the bottom line is after about 6 months, I would meet the guys at the bar and I would drink at the bar. And I would sit there with guys at the bar, and you know what guys do at the bar? I'd get there at 4:30 before the rush, you know what I mean? Rush out, because I would start feeling better on the way to the bar, you know what I mean? And my wife would be at home with the child, and I'm sitting there drinking. And I'd see people leave to go home. I'd say, where are they going? The booze is in here. And I'd sit there, and I'd look at that blonde in the front row, and I'd say, man, I'll tell you, look at her. Man, if I wasn't married, I could go out with that gal, you know? I mean, you know, if I only had that gal, I'd be okay. You know, but one of something, I'm very proud of myself because I'm a man of integrity. I never cheated on my wife. I would just sit in the bar, talk to my friends till around 2:00 in the morning, then I'd go home. Or my wife had been waiting for dinner and not knowing where I was. I just did that for about 3 or 4 years. And that's how I treated my wife. And I never thought I had any, as a matter of fact, I would invite my wife, and this is showing the kind of guy I am, to drink with me in the bar with my friends. And she'd say, I don't want to drink with those bums over there. I mean, I'd just like you to come home for dinner sometime. And I thought I was incredibly insulted. I mean, these people were people that really understood me, the guys I drank with in the bar. And so one Friday night, one Friday in the morning, I got up that morning and I got on my blue pinstripe suit, my white shirt, my red tie, the uniform of a prosecutor, and get ready to go and my wife comes up to me and she says, I just want you to know, like delivering the mail, if you come home drunk one more time, I'm leaving you. And I heard it. I didn't understand. I mean, I heard it. I heard the words. It wasn't an argument. It's just like I'm delivering the mail, you know? And I got in my car and I drove about 3 or 4 blocks. There was a red light and I stopped and I said to myself, Mr. Brilliant, and I was as sober as I am right now, physically sober. And I said to myself, what the hell does she mean by that? I mean, 12 words. If you come home drunk one more time, I'm going to leave you. I'm saying, what the hell? I mean, if you can't figure that out, there's something wrong. And there was something wrong. Because I didn't understand that at all. I mean, I'm an attorney. I was married to her. I'm bringing home the money and all. So what is this? Come home drunk, you know? So I go out and I go to the bar at 4:30 to have one drink, a double scotch. You know what I mean? So I'm already on 2. And I whack it down because I was a fast drinker. And Doug, my good buddy, my drinking buddy, another division chief, comes up to me. And I said, look, I got to leave. I remember I said, Ronnie told me if I come home drunk one more time, she's leaving you. He's leaving me. She's leaving me. And that's it. And he puts his arm around me. And he says, I got this whole family, remember? I got my wife, I got her father, I got her mother. They all love me. I got my son. I got a whole deal going there. And I tell him, I said, Ronnie says, I come home drunk one time, and she's leaving me. And he puts his arm around, Doug puts his arm around me. He says, Russ, we love you. We all love you. Everybody loves you. You're the greatest guy in the world. Your wife, Ronnie, loves you. She'll never divorce you. She'll never leave you. You're the greatest guy in the world. She's crazy about you. So I start thinking, hell, that's exactly what I've been thinking. That's why these guys are so brilliant in the bar, you know what I mean? They're the go-to guys, you know what I mean? And so it made sense to have one more drink, then one more drink, and at 4 o'clock in the morning, they brought me home, and that was the end of my marriage. And she kicked me out, and I went to live with Doug. He said, what are you talking about? Let me speak. It was like poetic justice, right? And I got divorced from my wife. And that's when the divorce proceedings happened. And I moved out of my wife, and I lost everything that was important to me or should have been important to me. It was right up there in the line, and I couldn't do it because I crossed that invisible line. I probably crossed the invisible line into alcoholism the first drink I had, but I definitely crossed that. Maybe 2 weeks before that, I could have left the bar. But that night, I wasn't leaving. And now listen to this. I wasn't drunk all the time. I was prosecuting first-degree murder cases. You understand what I'm saying? I wasn't crazy. But if you would come up to me right after I got a divorce and said, why'd you get a divorce? I would have told you that we're different people, that we got married too young, that she didn't understand me, that we grew up. I would have had any answer in the world, every answer in the world that I told myself, and believed it. Believed it. I would have never said, because I'm a piece of shit, I'm a horrible person, I'm a sinner, that you can never trust me. I have no integrity, you know, because I don't know how to, if I make a solemn oath before God that till death do us part, that means nothing to me. It means nothing to me. It's bullshit. You know what I mean? Because as soon as I see the next woman, the next thing or everything, I'll figure out a way how I'm going to leave. I would have never said anything. I didn't think there was anything wrong with me. I thought there was something wrong with her. You know? I would have told you a story that I believed. You know? You know why? Because that's part of the nature of the dis-ease of alcoholism. You want to know the insanity of alcoholism? And you know something? When I say that's the nature of alcoholism, what I did to that woman, what I did to my son, when I say that's the nature, that's like one molecule of alcoholism. That's just like one little aspect of alcoholism, being not giving a crap about anybody except yourself. That's what my sponsor said. What does this mean? Selfishness, self-centered, driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking. We step on those brothers and retaliate, usually without provocation. But we soon learned that we lived alcoholic lives. We did things based on our alcoholism, make decisions, would put us in a position to be hurt, so an alcoholic can self-override. What does it mean? And my son said, well, it means you don't give a shit about anybody except yourself. So, whoa! I like the way they say it in the book better. I don't want you interpreting this crap for me anymore. You know what I mean? Because my sponsor used to interpret the big book for me, and he was mean. He'd say mean things, you know? So we got divorced. And, you know, what happens? You pay child support. And, you know, I thought I was a good guy for doing that. I'd see my son like once every week or 2 weeks, unless I had a party to go to or something like that. And that's what I did. And deep down inside, I know there's a part of me that felt guilty and felt like a piece of crap, but you can sort of push that down. You can drink on that. Drinking will help that. If you feel guilty because of all the crap, you know, you're driving around in the car or you're lathering up. I don't care whether you're in AA or not AA, and all of a sudden you hear the voices, you know the voice. You know, you're just not doing anything. You haven't hurt anybody. You're just right. You went to me or whatever, and all of a sudden you hear the voice, and the voice says something like this: "You are such a loser. You are such a piece of crap. You'll never be okay. You're a loser. You're an idiot." And you look around and see who's saying that shit to you, and you're the only one in the car. And you say, where's that coming from? That's coming from deep down inside where you have capacity to be honest, who knows the real you and what you are. So you turn on the radio, you text somebody, you watch TV, you take a couple of drinks, you get another girl or something like that. You run around and get something to stop the voices, and that'll happen for a while, but they always come back. They always come back as to what a piece of shit you are, you know? So I come into Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm going to speed this thing up. Just give me a few more. We started a little late. So I come into Alcoholics Anonymous and I stop drinking. And now it comes and I do and so I take I do the first step on my knees. Well, that's all. I'm not going to go through. I stopped drinking, did the first step. And I go to meetings, get a sponsor. I'm not going to go through the whole bit, but now comes time for the fourth step, and I do the fourth step. I do the whole bit. I go through the bit, and I start seeing stuff, and I don't want to drink. Above anything else, I don't want to drink. Okay, I'm not thinking the way I'm thinking right now. You understand? Whatever I'm saying to you right now, I can never talk at an AA meeting like this 40 years ago. I don't know if that makes any sense. I would have had to have a book open or a tin opener, stuff like that. I couldn't do it like off the cuff like this. There was just no way. Because I wasn't clear. I wasn't transparent. I was crazy. I'm still crazy, but I'm just crazy at a different level. You know what I mean? And I don't want anybody to think that so here's the deal. So I don't want to drink. I don't want to drink, and I want to get better. And I think I was somewhat sincere, about as sincere as an alcoholic. I was telling one of the groups this morning, I do a lot of Zoom meetings, I said, the only thing you need for a good AA talk is to be honest, to be transparent, and to be sincere. And once you learn how to fake that, they'll make you a circuit speaker. Let me tell you something. Be a circuit speaker. You're laughing, it's the truth. But anyway, I did an amends with my first wife. She was having a biopsy or something. I went to the hospital and I explained to her that I was wrong and how I treated her was terrible, because it was terrible. Oh, I didn't even tell you the good part. I don't want to leave this part out. It's so good. She didn't want to get divorced because we had a son together, and I don't know what it is, women, she believed in this, what do they say, till death do us part crap? Yeah, she believed in that, okay? And she wanted to try to keep the marriage together for the kid, and we went to a marriage counselor, and I went, and the only reason I went is because I felt guilty, you know what I mean? And by the way, you know why I felt guilty? Because I was guilty, okay? That's why you feel guilty. That's why my sponsor said, I feel guilty. He says, because you are. I said, aren't you ever on my side? You're on my side, aren't you my sponsor, So when the marriage counselor asked my wife, what are the three things you want to change about Russell? And I think she gave an answer, but I wasn't listening because I had a date with a redhead that night. And I was getting the feeling that I was being pulled back in. You understand what I'm saying? And I wanted to leave so I could go out with, and so he turned to me, he says, what are the three things you want to change about Ronnie? I said, I just want to date other women. That was the end of the session. That's what I said to the mother of my child. That's what I said. I thought, it came out of my mouth like gold. Like I said, I didn't even have to think about it. I just want to date other women. Sabotage blew up the whole thing. It wasn't until years later that I actually started thinking to myself how that must have affected that gal, who was a sweet gal and a good wife, to be married to an asshole like me, to be married to a jerk like me. What kind of piece of crap human being says that to somebody? So I made amends, and we were friends after that. She got remarried to actually a friend of mine, and I made amends to the in-laws and all sort of stuff. So it wasn't always on my mind. Okay? And So here's an interesting deal. So I made the amends, right? What is that they say? You did like the 8th and 9th step and all that. What is that line in the big book? And we will not regret the past and wish to shut the door on it. Well, that's not true for me. Now the great news about this, on one level, it's true. On one level, I don't regret the past. I don't shut the door on it. You know why? Because I can talk to you about it. And I can maybe help other people with it. And I can be of service to the Lord with that. You know what I mean? By my testimony, I can be of service. So I don't regret it. Okay? And I don't shut the door on it. And I talk about it. But a day doesn't go by where my heart isn't ripped apart because of the way I treated my first wife. Now, I got to be honest with you. Now, of course, you got to realize the big book was written when Bill Wilson had 3.5 years. At 21 years, he was like suicidal. You know what I mean? So he was growing just like I'm growing. But the bottom line is I'm going to tell you something about myself. And what I'm going to tell you about myself is I believe till the day I die, I'll never, ever not regret what I did to my first wife and what I did to my in-laws and how I acted. As a matter of fact, and I had to somehow figure out that whole thing with that line in the big book. 'Cause like we worship the big book. And I'm a big God guy. I'm a Christian guy, big God. So I gotta figure out what does that mean where he says we will not regret the past. And Russell, every time you think of that, it's like tearing your heart out the way you treated that gal. How can both be true? And I'll tell you how both be true, because I've decided in my mind that God has really, really helped me out by allowing me to feel horrible about the way I treated my, what kind of person would I be if it didn't bother me? I mean, what kind of person would I be if it didn't bother me? The Apostle Paul, God told the Apostle Paul, he said, I had this thorn in my flesh that was killing me, and I asked God to remove it. And what God said to the Apostle Paul, he says, I will not take the thorn from you because I put it in there to keep you from becoming conceited, to start to think of you more highly than you ought to. And then he said this great line, God said this great line to the Apostle Paul, he says, because my power is made perfect in your weakness. And there's not a person in here who isn't here because they became incredibly weak. Because when you guys were on top of the mountain and going skiing and out there, and having trips and had money and you were having the romance and everything, you didn't want to hear any of this crap. You know what I mean? It wasn't until you were crunched down and weak that all of a sudden the power of God came in. You start thinking, well, maybe I have a drinking problem. Maybe everybody's right. Maybe there's something wrong with me. And so what happens, what I believe, is that because I know that, and I know who I am and what I am, no, don't get me wrong. Every promise has happened to me that's in the book. Every promise has happened to me. I'm grateful to God and but the bottom line is that that deal, that pain that I have, I am so incredibly aware. Bill Wilson said, the Lord has been so wonderful to me, curing me of this terrible disease that I got to keep talking about him, telling other people. I'm so incredibly aware of what a horrible person I was and what a horrible person I could be in a nanosecond if it wasn't for God. There was a time, because I hung out with all you guys and everything like that, so you get into the AA, don't conform yourself to the world or even to AA, where I hung around with everybody in AA, and where I used to tell people I'm spiritual, not religious. Have you ever heard that? You might have said it yourself. Well, no, I don't believe in God. I believe in God, but it's my own God and everything. I'm spiritual, not religious. I've evolved. You understand? I did all the steps. I'm 10 years sober. I'm a spiritual person now. I'm not religious. I'm spiritual, and I used to say stuff like that. I used to believe it. I'm a carnal man that can easily, if I'm not careful, if I don't constantly embrace God, I can easily, like what happened to Bill Wilson, quite frankly, and he talked about it, where God's presence can be blotted out by the worldly clamors of this world. I can go on a jag if I'm not careful, if I'm not constantly talking about God, hanging out with people talking about God, worshiping God, for me, reading the big book, the Bible, and everything like that, hanging around those people, that God is the central factor of their lives, and they're convinced that he lives in a heart and mind in a way which is the miraculous, and to be rocketed in the fourth dimension. If I don't hang around those people, the fellowship of the spirit people, which are in AA and outside of AA too. If I don't hang around people that are not ashamed of God, that never apologize for God, because all men of faith have courage, they trust their God. Instead, they let him demonstrate through their testimony what they have, what they can be, and once they begin to outgrow fear. If I don't hang around those people, not just the don't drink and go to meetings people, which is okay. You know, that's good for like a good 5 or 10 years or something like that, until you crash and burn and everything. If I don't hang around those people, I can easily, I want to always remember that the seeds of horribleness, that thing that my turning to my wife and saying to her, I just want to date other women. That's still deep down inside of me. You know? I don't want to be so conceited that I think, you know, every once in a while I get to talk around to different places, you know, all over the place. And I have people that come up to me and they say something like this. I know that you guys may have had this experience, Pat, you may have this. They'll say to me something like this. They'll say, I don't want to swell your head. You know, I don't want to swell your head, but you really helped me. Listen, you really helped me. And there's no way you can swell my head. I can't even explain it to you. The gift that God gave me of remembering what I did to my former wife keeps me so grounded as to who I really am and who he really is. You know, you will never catch me telling people I'm spiritual. I'm not spiritual. You guys are spiritual. I'm not spiritual. I'm not spiritual. I'm religious. You call religious going to church and reading the Bible. So I'm religious, but I'm not spiritual. I'm a carnal man. I could easily start focusing on the things of this world and not God. You know what I mean? And the central fact of my life is God. And what I want to do is I want to be of maximum service to him and other people, and just help other people by being transparent and telling about my life. You understand? And if part of that deal is to carry around the burden in order to do that and understand that I'm not spiritual, is to instead of bragging about is to tell about my defects and tell who I am and what I am, and to let you know exactly that, you know, who I am, and bring that up so I never forget that. Okay, that's a burden as a matter of fact, I praise the Lord for allowing me to have that pain. I'll live with that pain. That's a good pain for me. It's a healthy pain for me to have that shame and that feeling deep down inside me and have that regret. It's a healthy pain. I think if that was taken away from me, I'd start thinking I was something. You understand? I drank alcohol because I was a nothing. I was always going to be a nothing. That's all I was a nothing. I used to put something in my body that made me feel like I was an almost. When you're a nothing, almost is top of the world. You know what I mean? And the bottom line is now the bottom line is I still have to realize who I am and who I could be and who I was and why I am the man I am today, and it's only because of him. It's only because of God, who's the central fact of my life. You know what they say in the book, there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. And the unfortunate thing is sometimes the now stuff, may you find him now. Sometimes now doesn't happen for 20 or 30 years. In Alcoholics Anonymous. That's just the way it is. Sometimes it doesn't happen. Sometimes it never happens. And people don't realize that that's the whole point. The point is that there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. and they say, how do you find them? Here is the how and why of it. Step 1, step 2, step 3, the steps. The whole point of the steps is so you can find him now. And most people drink before they have 20 years because they never find him. Or even if they have 20 years, they're not happy with their lives because they don't have him. All they have is an intellectual sort of like sobriety. You know, that kind of thing. Sobriety without God. Sobriety, as they call it, you know. And they don't know what the problem is because they're doing all the steps and they're going to all the meetings. But there'll come a time, I didn't want to go to this, there may come a time in your life, if you ever come to a time in your life where you start feeling as bad as you felt before you came in here, and you're trying to figure out what's going on because you're still going to meetings and everything like that, you'll understand there's bottoms, and then there are bottoms, and then there are micro bottoms, and there are mini bottoms, and God has an interesting way, he has an interesting way of discipline. We are undisciplined people. God has an interesting way of disciplining people. I say, well, tell me about your God, do you believe he says, oh, well, I know one thing. Oh yeah, one thing about God. Yeah, he doesn't want me to drink. How do you know that? How do you know that? You really believe that? He doesn't want me to have pain. You really believe that? He doesn't want me to be ashamed of myself. You really believe that? He doesn't want to have bad things happen to me. You really think that? Let me tell you something. You'd better study up on him a little bit more. You better study up on him. If you think God is a God of just giving you whatever you want and never causing you pain, let me tell you something. You're in for an interesting experience. You've forgotten what got you here in the first place. You're in for an interesting experience in your life. When you start getting the pain and being crushed down and repeated humiliation, final crushing, when all of a sudden the IRS comes in and takes all your money, where all of a sudden your wife files for divorce, when all of a sudden they tell you have cancer for the second and third time, when all of a sudden people that you love start leaving you or dropping off or dying or stuff like that, where things start happening to you, you really think God is worried about what a bad thing? Listen, what God wants is he wants you closer to him, doing his will. He doesn't want you going back to doing the same crap you were doing. The same crap you were doing, chasing the same stuff you were doing, but now you're doing it while you're drinking coffee in an AA room. That's not what this thing is all about. So I don't know. Is that the 4th step? Was it the 7th step? Or was it the 6th step? Or the 11th or 12th step? Or the 3rd step? Or the 1st step? I don't know. What step was that? I know the steps are somewhere in there. Because it has to do with my life. And I lived the life working the steps. So thank you very much.